Welcome to another episode of the Corona Sports Podcast with your host, Jimmy Corona. I am excited to do this recap. I've been waiting to do this recap. I'm so sorry I couldn't do it yesterday. I had a lot going on. College student, really hard to post on podcasts when I'm doing schoolwork, getting ready for fall break. I had an exam today, bunch of stuff going on. But I made time for my Wednesday because today I am getting right into the recap for an amazing chaotic weekend that we thought was going to be apple picking weekend, where I could go out with my girlfriend over the weekend and go do stuff, when it ended up being an absolute chaotic battle through like 4 or 5 top 11 teams going down. Absolutely crazy. Storm fields were happening. Historical 0-60 getting broken open. Crazy stuff. We're going to start with all the boring stuff. My top 5 games, which most of them weren't like really that competitive. Ohio State, Iowa, Texas A&M, Missouri. Our third game was Rutgers, Nebraska, which that was basically a slugfest. And then I had the fourth game, Washington, Michigan. That was a decent game. Fifth game was the Big 12 matchup with Arizona, Texas Tech. We'll get into that game. And then I have the surprise, not even the surprise, because most people know what the sixth game I'm going to talk about. I'm fired up. 6 games got me really fired up. I was getting ready for this, and I was going crazy because of just what I was seeing on Saturday. And I'll also break down a little bit more of the upsets because I could not get them into this show. I'm also going to do my top 10 list since it's Wednesday. No Heisman Trophy watch this week. Thursday recap. Not recap. The previews for this week. And I am more jacked up for this week. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on this Saturday. A lot of top 25 matchups. Cannot wait to get to watch majority of them. We are here in Columbus, Ohio. For my people in Florida, I pray for you. Stay safe. Milton, Helene, back-to-back hurricanes, really awful scenario. Hopefully they make it through. It doesn't get any worse for them. I still think it's going to be pretty bad, storm surges and everything. But I pray for everybody out there. But without further ado, here we go. We are going to get into the first 3 games. I'm going to kind of wrap it through them, kind of give you the basics, because some of these teams I'm going to be talking about within the next few weeks anyways. So, Ohio State, Iowa. We're going to get right into this game. I went to this game. Jeremiah Smith, absolute dude. He can do about anything. You could double cover him. You can single cover him. I think you can even triple team him. I have not seen a team triple team him yet, but I think he could be a triple team. That's how good this dude is. I watched him absolutely moss this Iowa defender. I was really close. I would post the video. It was insane. It was crazy to see, like, live. Everybody's just like in the stands. This dude's crazy. His ability that he can do with catching the football, his route running, his movement, it's just nothing I haven't seen other than Marvin Harrison Jr. And he was one of the best receivers in the country and was in the Heisman finalists. Absolutely, dude. And mind you, he is a true freshman doing all of this. He beat out all these 5-star receivers, and Emeka Egbuka was supposed to be our top receiver. He is our second best receiver. That's how crazy this dude is. He's a true freshman. Absolutely lights out. Game went how I predicted it. I knew Iowa was going to come in there. It was going to be a slugfest. They caused a couple turnovers. It was kind of going to... It wasn't even in their game scheme. It was more of Ohio State had a 7.5-minute drive to open the game. And I was shocked. I'm like, that is not Ohio State football. But really and truly, this balanced offense that we have is really good, I think. And it's going to be really good this week. I think I'm really going to talk about Ohio State more tomorrow. Kind of like a preview for the Oregon game. That's going to be absolutely a cinema game. Going to be probably up there with Georgia, Alabama. I'm really excited to cover that. But for now, getting back to this game. Kind of how I expected it. The 7 points shouldn't even been there. Backups came in. Backup quarterback for Iowa did his part. Got a touchdown. Wasn't really close. Ohio State's defense had a turnover given to them for one. They stripped Cade McNamara, and I think they may have stripped him twice. I think they stripped him once. But I think they might have got him again. Or it was a fumble. One of the two. There was another fumble. It ended up turning into 21 points. It blew the game out in the third quarter. And everybody in the stands was leaving by the end of the third. So, I'm not shocked by this. Kind of wanted to go over it a little bit because of just how balanced Ohio State looks. Jeremiah Smith. Will Howard's kind of questionable, but his stats pretty good. Like I said, I'll get into more Ohio State football and what's going to happen this Saturday, tomorrow. It's going to be really interesting, really good take. I'm really excited to go over what some of my upsets are going to be, what some of my games I'm going to have. Iowa moving forward, they really need to figure out their offense. Their offense has not been good for 3 years. They've been at the top of the Big Ten winning football games with just their defense. If Iowa had an offense, there is a potential that there's some years they would have been able to beat Michigan, been able to beat Ohio State, because their defense has been one of the best defenses in the country for probably, I would say, the last 10 years. Normally, Iowa has really, really hard defense to play against. And I was really not shocked that they held Ohio State to their lowest total, 35 points the entire season. So, I mean, big test is this week, but that was kind of a test that I wanted to see. I also liked how we stopped the rush. That 116 came, like I said, garbage time. In the first half, I'm pretty sure they held them to 40 rushing yards against one of the best backs in the country. That dude was really good. That offensive line for Iowa was really good. And they held that run game to, I think, 40 yards in the first half. Of course, with garbage time and everything like that, 116 rush yards. I don't really consider that, that big of a deal. I think our defense is going to be really, really tested against that Oregon offense this week. I don't know if Iowa is off this week or who they got this week, but it's kind of the wrap up for this game. I'm going to also fly through the next one. Texas A&M, Missouri. I really don't got to say much about this, but whoever voted Missouri number 9 absolutely needs to be fired because Missouri was not a top 10 team, and they never was, and they got absolutely pancaked, and I'm surprised they're even still ranked. I think they're ranked 21st. We're going to see on this AP Top 25 where they're at. I think they're 21st. They are not a top 25 team. Please stop ranking them. They are not a top 25 team. You could probably put a better top 25 team in there. I don't even think Michigan should even be ranked, but they're 24th. Tell me about it. No idea why. But Missouri got absolutely cooked. It was 34-0. Texas A&M absolutely destroyed them. They got their quarterback back. Everybody questioned if he was going to be good. He lived up to the hype. He just absolutely cooked this Missouri defense. Their rushing was 236. Absolutely impressive. I really strongly believe, from what I've heard from other podcasters, from everything I've looked at, schedule-wise and everything like that, Texas A&M has the possibility to be in the SEC championship game, and I would even solidify them as the top contender to getting an at-large bid for the top 12 playoff this year. Their schedule plays in their favor. I think the only big games they got is LSU and Texas in their next 6. So they could, if they beat LSU, they have the path to go play Texas 10-1. I think 7-0 in conference play. That's wild. That's actually really good for Texas A&M. After them not having a really good, I think they went 4-8 last season, and they got a new coach, Mike Elko, and he's really changed that program, and they potentially could be in the playoffs this year and be a contender. So I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. Missouri, I'm telling you right now, you're probably gonna drop one more game for sure, and probably maybe another one. I think they finished 9-3. I probably won't talk about them much unless they surprisingly get to 10-1 or they beat Alabama whenever they play Alabama. So that's kind of the wrap up for that game. It's kind of short, absolute obliteration. If you watch that game, like I said, absolute obliteration. Should I not even talked about this game because how bad it was. Missouri just got absolutely destroyed. I was really shocked when I went and looked. There was no turnovers by either team, but it felt like there was turnovers by Missouri because of how bad they were getting destroyed. So that was game 2. Game 3, I had Nebraska-Rutgers. A little bit about this game. Very sloppy play by both teams. It was kind of a slugfest defensive game, going back and forth. I think most of the scores came in like the first quarter and third quarter. I think Nebraska scored 14 in the first half, or maybe 7-7. Anyways, it was a really big slugfest. I'm not shocked by this because I thought both defenses were going to play good. I thought it was going to be more probably in the 20s, not 14-7. Pretty interesting. That like most games, you'd be like, "Oh, that's the first half." No, that's the final. Like that was the final for that game, and it's crazy to see this turnover. One turnover by Rutgers is the difference in this game, and that's crazy when you're in a defensive battle game like this. 14-7, slugfest, going back and forth. It's gonna end with a turnover. If a turnover is gonna be the biggest thing in the game, and I think that it was really critical for Nebraska to do that. Dylan Raiola, oh my God, these are flipped. Sorry, Rutgers was the one that had a turnover. I don't know what's going on with producer today. Absolutely cooked a couple of this today, and I think last week we had one mess up too. So hopefully we can get that all straight now, fix this up. But anyways, Dylan Raiola has been playing very sluggish. I don't know if he's in his down period. He was electric the first 3-4 weeks. After the Illinois game, when he struggled a lot, he's just been struggling. Purdue he struggled against, which Purdue is not a good team at all. He struggled against Rutgers, which I kind of expected. But I'm telling you right now, Nebraska has... This is crazy to think about, but Indiana is undefeated, and that coach is really, really scary for what the next 4 teams that have to play Indiana before Ohio State. Nebraska's got to play Indiana. I think Washington's got to play Indiana, Michigan State, and Michigan. And I'm telling you right now, if Indiana comes out of that 3-1 or 4-0, that is going to be a top 10 matchup against Ohio State. Indiana has really been impressive. I'm really shocked. They're normally not a great team. But this new coach really got them going. They're really impressive. And you watch their film. They're not just a mediocre team that has not played nobody. They are a really solid team overall. Their team composition's really good. So Nebraska, if they're going to play like they have been, they're going to lose 3 or 4 games this season. They'll probably be an 8-4 team, which in no means is not bad for them. But when they have the potential to be a Big Ten contender this year with their schedule, makes it kind of like a failure at that point, you know? So I think a big win for Nebraska. They're winning games, but moving forward, they got to play better than this if they're gonna even touch the Big Ten championship potential. And it's crazy because I had both of these teams. I think last week I said they were in my top 6 for maybe making it. 4 of those teams just got knocked off this weekend. Literally set them. The only two that survived, or sorry, three, three got knocked off. The only three that survived were Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. Oregon plays Ohio State this week. Ohio State plays Penn State in 2 weekends. So everything's gonna get shuffled here shortly. We're gonna really see what the Big Ten's like after November 2nd. That will basically kind of see where we're at the Big Ten championship and everything in contention. It's gonna be wild. SEC is kind of wide open except Texas. I think the wide openness is for the second spot. But it could be absolutely, who knows? It's been chaotic so far this season. Have no idea what it's going to be like, and the potential is there. But yeah, that's my third game. Not really much to talk about. Like I said, it's slugfest. My fourth game is a little bit more interesting. Michigan Washington. I had Michigan winning this game. I'm really shocked by how Washington played. If you go look at who they played so far, their only 2 losses is to a Washington State team and to a Rutgers team, which Rutgers ended up losing this week. But you would think, oh, okay, so Michigan just beat USC. They beat Minnesota. You would think, oh, okay, so they got the edge a little bit. And maybe I was just too blind to this, but Washington hosts Michigan on the West Coast, which, by the way, that environment lived up to its hype. I think even Oregon's is going to live up to its hype this weekend. It's going to be insane. I think those 2 stadiums are great additions to the Big Ten. Really tough place to play. So it's 14. I'm pretty sure it's 14-0. And Michigan goes, all right, we need to change our quarterback. For the 3rd time this season, they changed their quarterback. They go from Alex Orji to Jack Tuttle. Jack Tuttle was a 7-year senior. COVID year. I remember when he was at Indiana. He's not a bad quarterback. I just think he couldn't win the big moments. So I think the ceiling for Michigan is raised a little bit, but with this loss, I don't think they have reached 9-3. I think they might reach 8-4. They might even be a 7-5 team. I don't really know. Like I said, they had the potential. They lost to Washington. They have the potential to lose to Indiana. They have the potential to lose to Oregon and Ohio State. That will be 4 losses. If they can't beat, actually, no, it'd be 5. It'd be 5 losses. 4 in the Big Ten play. It'd probably be the worst season that Michigan's had in the Big Ten since the 2020 COVID, which they were absolutely horrible in. So I think it's kind of a rebuild year. If they can find some identity with Jack Tuttle as their quarterback now, they might have the potential to be 7-5, 8-4. That's probably the max. I'm going to say 8-4. But you never know. We'll see. Washington moving forward, I think they're going to be pretty competitive. They could be like a 9-3, 8-4 team in the Big Ten too. There's potential that they scrape everybody the rest of the year. Even Oregon at the last week go 10-2, have the potential to be in the Big Ten championship game. Who knows with how, like I said, it's been very chaotic. Who knows how everything's going to go this year. And I'm really curious to see how Washington finishes and to see what team is Michigan going to produce the final weeks. And I really don't think they're going to finish the top 25. And like I said, I really don't see them beating Oregon or Ohio State. So I see 2 more losses coming. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see how, like I said, Big Ten's kind of wide open other than you got your top 3 teams right now, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. And it's wild. It's wild just to see everything play out as it is right now. So very different from the last few years, that's for sure. So that is my 4th game. My 5th game is the Big 12 game. Texas Tech and Arizona. Texas Tech ended up winning 28-22. This is kind of a turnover game. There's a lot of turnovers everywhere. Texas Tech ended up winning the turnover battle. As you can tell, they had 3 turnovers, 17 points off of them. Arizona only had 6. They had three bad turnovers, ended up costing them the game. And Texas Tech is in competition with Iowa State, Colorado, and BYU for the top of the Big 12. And that is crazy to think about, because if you think about how the Big 12 was at the beginning of the year, you had Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State, favorites to win the Big 12. Now it's not that. Iowa State is ranked 11th. BYU, I think, is 14th or 13th, somewhere in that range. And you got Texas Tech 5-1, 3-0 in Big 12 play, potentially going to be able to play for a Big 12 championship. And by the way, there's a possibility, if this happens and Boise State's ranked ahead of all these people, there's a possibility that the Big 12 is at the at-large bid and Boise State's at the automatic bid. Wait to see that one. That is quite interesting to think about. I thought about this the other day, the possibility of this. Kind of the recap, before I get into this, kind of the recap of the game is that Arizona can play really good and then they have their really bad games. So they're kind of inconsistent. I really can't predict what they're going to do the rest of the year, but they still got the opportunity to make it a little bit harder now since they lost to Texas Tech, but there's still a possibility. The race is wide open, like I said, in the Big 12. But a little bit more into this, I kind of want to discuss this since this is a Wednesday episode. This is kind of supposed to be my Tuesdays, but it's kind of a Wednesday episode type of thing. But because of the the way this is scripted in the top 12 team playoff, okay? So your number 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds are based off your conference champions. So SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC is what everybody assumes, okay? And then you have another conference champion. There's 5 conference champions that get automatic bids. The other one gets an automatic bid, but it's wherever it's placed at. So let's say Boise State is the automatic bid, and with these current playoffs, it would be Texas at 1, Ohio State at 2, Miami at 3, and I'm pretty sure Iowa State at 4. Boise State would be the 12th seed, and then everybody else is at large bids, right? But there's a possibility that Boise State could be in that potential running for it. Let's say, for instance, and this is hypothetical, let's say the Big Ten explodes, or let's say the ACC explodes and Clemson drops a game and they're ranked 20th. Or let's say that the ACC has SMU at 20th or something like that. And they go play Miami. They beat Miami, and they are ranked lower than Boise State. Boise State wins the Mountain West. They're 11-1 or 12-1 Mountain West champion, ranked number 10th because they've been winning games. They've been dominating games. And they played really close against one of the best teams in the country, Oregon. Right? So Boise State would actually get the at-large bid over that SMU ACC champion, or over that Clemson ACC champion, which is mind-boggling to think about. I thought about this, like I've been thinking about this the last couple of days when I was like, oh, what am I going to talk about? This is one of the biggest things because I kept seeing it on podcasts, ESPN, all over the place about how Boise State's ranked right now, and SMU's in the running, and Pittsburgh is in the running, and you think about all the stuff that's going on with all the upsets that's been going. Michigan gets upset, USC gets upset, which that will be later on in the show. Vanderbilt upsets Bama, which is the next game I'm going to talk about. Like, those upsets are critical because you could have this running order of teams going from top 10 to 24th, 9th to 21st, 11th to unranked, all kinds of stuff like that, right? So it could really change the dynamic of how we perceive these top 4 conference champions. And it's pretty interesting to think about Boise State being a potential fourth seed over an ACC, even a Big 12 champ, even a Big 10 or an SEC champ. If that happens, the world will explode. Let me tell you. But anyways, that's besides the point. That's a hypothetical reason. So, kind of what I wanted to digress with a little bit with after that fifth game because of how critical Texas Tech is looking and how the Big 12 is looking overall. My next game I'm going to get into is the reason why I've been fired up this entire episode. I did a little bit of a recording before this, and I was fired up when I did the last one. So I'm going to take a drink break. Hold on. Vanderbilt, Bama. In right's mind, why would I think that Vanderbilt would have a shot in beating the number one team, Bama, after they just beat Georgia? Last week on my episode, I wish I could pull this up. Last week on my episode, I briefly talked about this. I should have even put this in my top 3. I knew it was going to happen. I had a feeling about it. Just not really talk about it because it's like, okay, Bama, it's Bama. Come on. We know they're going to be Vanderbilt. There's no shot. And come back from the Ohio State game, and I'm looking down on my phone, and Bama is losing to Vanderbilt with 6 minutes remaining. I watched the last 6 minutes, and let me tell you, there's 2 things I really noticed. For one, Bama's defense had no idea what was going on. They could not stop the run. The line of scrimmage was playing in Vanderbilt's way. So let's think of it this way. Vanderbilt is right here, right? Bama is right here. Oh, sorry. Bama, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was pushing Bama like this. And it was happening more every play, which that's not common. If you go back and look, Bama played Georgia, right? Bama held Georgia to 86 rush yards. They gave up 166 to Vanderbilt. Now, who in the right mind is thinking, what even happened at this point? I don't even know what happened. I was just jaw dropped. The thing was that a lot of teams, when they go play these top teams, they always have a dip down the week after because it's so emotional. You're like, the hype is after that, you know, people are still talking about that game. They're still hyping you up. They're like, oh, you guys are the best team in the country and all of that jazz and everything like that. And your head gets imploded and you're like, oh my God, self-ego is through the roof. Elite teams take that and was like, okay, I already knew I was the top team. We're going to go in there and handle business anyways. And Bama teams in the past would have went out and handled business here. Probably would have been about the same score, but Bama would have won the game. It would have been like 42-40 or something like that. It would have been a tough game. But this was a letdown game. I was very shocked by it. I want to absolutely say this. If you look on my screen right now, I have the time of possession, which in every game I've done the last, I guess since I started, the last 2 weeks, the only time I seen 40 minutes was when Kentucky beat Ole Miss and they beat them 20-17. 20-17. Okay? 20-17. They had 40 minutes time of possession. Vanderbilt scored 40 points in 42 minutes, and Bama scored 35 with 17. This is quite impressive in itself because when a team controls the ball for 42 minutes, you expect the total to be less than 20 because they're trying to keep the ball away. But no, it exploded into the shootout. 42 minutes, Bama gave the ball to Vanderbilt. And I promise you, they could not get off the field. You take the last drive of that game, and it describes the entire game for Bama. Getting pushed off the ball, had horrible penalties, people losing their cool. Not good at all. 14-0 deficit. Turnover battle goes to Vanderbilt. This is a recipe for disaster. Number one team goes down. Vanderbilt has not beaten a top 20. If I remember correctly, I don't know if it's a top 5 or a top 10 or top 25, but they were 0-60 going into that game. They're 1-60 today. That is crazy to think about. Vanderbilt has been nothing but the laughingstock in the SEC. They've been nothing. Absolutely. Let me put it to you this way. Vanderbilt's been the penny of the SEC. Everybody else spent $100, and then you got Bama and Georgia, the millionaires. The penny of the SEC just cooked the millionaire. That is crazy to think about. I don't know what to say for Bama going forward. Just saying that if they play like this consistently, they're probably going to drop 2 more games, and they're not going to be in the playoffs. I promise you that. That really hurt if you're Bama. That was not what you wanted, not what you needed. So, I'm not going to lie. It got me on a tangent today. I was fired up when I had to do this game because, holy smokes, I brought it up. I briefly brought it up that I thought this could be a letdown game. I didn't think so. Boy, was I wrong. The reason why I also, too, thought it was because Vanderbilt has played teams tough this year. And who knew? Who knew that this Vanderbilt was going to throw the field goal post in the Cumberland River and walk away with a win? And Bama fans absolutely stunned. The SEC is all shaken up after this. I really don't know who your top second team will be. Right now, it's got to be Georgia because they're the only ones that didn't lose to Vanderbilt. They lost to Bama, that lost to Vanderbilt, so they may be in the same category. But for sure, Texas. But Texas, we'll see. They're going to get tested the next 2 weeks. If Texas rolls Oklahoma and Georgia, then I would say they're the number one team in the SEC and maybe in the country. So, kind of what I'm going to roll with this Bama game. I got more upsets to talk about. Now we're going to get into key games over the weekend. I called the Tennessee-Arkansas. I called the Miami-California. And then I had South Carolina-Ole Miss. I missed on Ole Miss. I barely missed on Miami. That was a crazy game. And I hit on Arkansas. I hit on Vanderbilt. I also had a possibility. I almost put USC-Minnesota in there. And then there was a couple other ones that wow to me too. But Tennessee, Arkansas, I figured that was going to be a tough game for Tennessee. Traveling on the road to Arkansas. Arkansas has been a really good team. They've been that team that's like they just one drive or one turnover really just cost them an entire game. Oklahoma State overtime. Texas A&M one possession game. So they've been like close to wins. They could be a 6-0 ranked team right now, probably in the top 10 to where they are right now unranked, and a big win over Tennessee. Kind of a future, it was a big game for Nico, his first big game for Tennessee. Ended up just I don't really know what he was doing at the end of the game. I would go over that if I was the coach. Because why are you rolling out and not throwing it away? If you don't see anything, throw it away. Or even if you're going to take off running, pitch it back. You should know what the time clock is when you're at that position. I played the position. There is a play clock and there is an actual time clock. You got to look for it. And he had no idea, and he ended up costing them the game. So, Tennessee ended up It wasn't even like getting murked, but it was pretty close game, and they just ended up losing it. I think they're still a top 10 team. They're gonna be in the playoffs. They got some really tough tests coming. I think they got Bama, they got Georgia. It's gonna be a tough sledding. They're gonna have to play some good games, and they're gonna have to play their best football here in the next month or two. USC dropping to Minnesota. I also thought about this game. USC struggled against Wisconsin, and I didn't think they were gonna do great against Minnesota, because Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and even somewhat Nebraska, their their offense and defense are normally like run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Our defense is gonna stuff you, and we're gonna make you in the different positions. And Minnesota's hitting their strides with their offense, and they're hitting their strides with their defense. And they were able to actually hold USC, cause turnovers, and hold USC to 17 points and keep them from beating them. Because USC has the capability of coming out in the second half and winning the game. But they've been playing sloppy. They haven't been playing good. And they got beat. USC's got a really tough test this week. And be honest, I really don't think they're going to beat Penn State. So really tough sledding for them this weekend, or this past week and this week. So for them, Miami should have lost against Cal. I'm really upset with Cal. How do you give up a 35-10 lead and lose this game? They were up 30. Let me remind you, they were up 35-10 in the fourth quarter. One sec. Let me repeat this one more time. 35-10 in the fourth quarter. They lost 39-38. And you would think, is that overtime? No, not overtime, in regulation. They gave up 29 unanswered points. I think it was 29-3. They had 7 total plays, and they were basically punts and a turnover. Like, you gotta be kidding me. If you're gonna beat Miami, you gotta finish the job. And they couldn't finish the job. Miami skids by again on some really lucky stuff. So, honestly, who knows? Who knows what Miami is? I don't know. They're definitely gonna slip one game. There's no way. And Cam Ward has got to be in the Heisman conversation, because he's the main reason why they're even in this conversation of being in the ACC championship game right now. So they should have at least 2 losses. They should be out of it right now. They should be with Florida State. Freaking Florida State is in Hawaii right now, chilling out because of how bad they've been. Miami should be there too. They should be 4-2 and was wondering what happened to our season. That's where it should be, but here we are. I think they're 5-0 or 6-0, one of the two. Absolute shock for me. Syracuse beating UNLV. This is big for Syracuse. Top 25 win. UNLV kind of puts them out of the race for like potential of getting automatic bid. Well, no, not really. The only way I see them being in the playoffs is if they beat Boise State, and I think they'd have to beat them twice. And I think they would have to be like ranked. I don't think they would be even contention. I would rather have Boise State in my opinion. People were picking UNLV. I'm like, yeah, you're nuts. But Syracuse, big win. Kyle McCord, big win for him. And we'll see what Syracuse is about. They've been a pretty solid team this year. They could give some troubles to teams that they're playing against. So UNLV, like I said, the only thing I can think of for playoffs is if they beat Boise State twice, and they're making it in. And they gotta hope that the group of fives keeps losing, and it's all jumbled up now. SMU beats Louisville, and the reason why I put this as my last one, instead of like a couple other games, SMU beating Louisville is massive for the ACC. That was potentially like, so it was kind of a 4-way race. There's SMU, Louisville, Miami and Clemson, kind of in the ACC like race right now. SMU being Louisville, just move Louisville basically out of contention for the ACC and puts SMU in the contention to play Miami, play Clemson in the ACC championship game, which is a real possibility if you think about it. And so I think that was like an impressive win. And they're kind of a dark horse in the ACC. I would not be shocked if they make it to the ACC championship and they end up winning. So I'm just saying they're pretty under radar team. They used to be like a group of 5 under the radar team, and now they're in the ACC, and they got the offensive line and the defensive line to do it. Their line was moving at Louisville. It was quite impressive. So curious to see what's going forward for SMU and Louisville, but it's kind of my take for the ACC. Now we're gonna get into my top 10, and this kind of wrap up Tuesday's episode and Wednesday's episode. Again, I apologize for not having yesterday's episode. Just a lot of stuff going on, but that's besides the point. We're gonna get into my top 10, and it really shook up this week. Before I reveal this, people are gonna disagree. People are gonna be like, "You're crazy." But this is my opinion. This is my opinion about this. I think this is the top 10. Tennessee is number 10. No hate to Tennessee, but they were kind of like, I think they were like 4. And then they lost to Arkansas, which Texas A&M beat, and then Oklahoma State beat, and Oklahoma State's not really good. So I'm like, Tennessee can move up into my top 5 after they beat Bama or Georgia or whatever. But for now, I'm going to have them at 10. Iowa State has been a very underrated Big 12 team. And you kind of have to put them in the top 10 because if they end up winning the Big 12, they are most likely going to get the automatic bid and they're going to be a 4th seed. So I kind of moved them up in the top 10 as potentially like going to be the automatic bid for the Big 12. They've been playing really good football too, and they beat Iowa 20-19, and Ohio State beat them 35-7. Not similar, but like still common opponent. Ohio State beat them by 28. Iowa State came back and beat them against a really good Iowa team, and they've been playing really good in the Big 12. So I expect them to be 4th seed, unless they fall, which they haven't yet, so we're going to keep them at 9. Head to Tennessee for right now. And by the way, that does not mean that Tennessee is a worse team than Iowa State. I think Tennessee would beat Iowa State any day. I'm giving Iowa State the benefit of the doubt because they are a Big 12 champion contender. Automatic bid could be, and they're going to be seated higher than Tennessee at the end of the year. Just plain simple as that. Tennessee looks like maybe the 4th best team in the SEC. Miami stays at 8. Clemson is at 7. They moved from 9 to 7. In my opinion, I have Clemson over Miami any day. I think Clemson's going to beat Miami in the ACC championship. I think Miami will eventually fall out my top 10 because they're going to drop a game or two. And Clemson's going to win the ACC and they're going to get an automatic bid. I think by the end of the year, Clemson will be in my top 4. Top 4 overall. And they'll be probably 3rd or 2nd for automatic bids. Not going to lie to you. So I have Clemson and Miami 7 and 8. Bama at 6. I really wanted to drop them out of my top 10, but benefit of the doubt, they beat Georgia. Had a close loss to Vanderbilt. Can't really boot them out of the top 10. I really looked at the other teams and I'm like, I couldn't put any of them at 6. I'm like, on a neutral field, I don't think any of them could beat Bama. Just to be honest with you, there's 5 other teams better than Bama, and the 4 that are below, I promise you probably couldn't beat them. And that's including Tennessee. So, that is my 6 through 10. Now, my 1 through 5 is not very controversial because it's kind of the AP. I think it's basically the AP. So I think you put Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Georgia. You give Oregon and Penn State the benefit of the doubt. They're undefeated. They've been playing really good football. They're hitting their strides. Ohio State just got tested a little bit against Iowa. They haven't really been tested. We're really going to see this top 3 matchup, Oregon, Ohio State. I'm really excited to cover this tomorrow. Texas has got a couple rough stretch. They got Oklahoma this week and Georgia next week, and those are going to be 2 of the toughest games of their season. I'm excited for them. Excited to cover both of their games too. So we'll really see how the SEC and the Big Ten are going to all match up, and those teams that are just sitting out of the top 10 has the potential to be in the top 6 by the end of by the middle of November. I promise you that. So it's really interesting to see. I think because Georgia has that loss with Bama lost to Vanderbilt, I have to put them at 5. I don't think anybody is really gonna put. And then like they struggled against Auburn. It wasn't really like a big. They blew them out at the end, but it wasn't impressive. Auburn's been really struggling all year. You compare Ohio State and Georgia. Ohio State played a 3-1 Iowa team that barely lost to Iowa State. They would have been a 4-0 team against. They could have won against the potential Big 12 champion, right? So I think that's kind of why I think Georgia and Oregon, at the end of the day, they played 2 really close games, but they've been doing what they needed to do to be in the top 5. They dominated against Michigan State. They've been dominating opponents ever since that Boise State game. Have not seen them really struggle. We're really going to see what they are made of. Like I said, top 3 matchup. It's going to be really interesting. So that's kind of my top 10. That is today's episode. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button at the below, hit the ring button to get notified for new latest episodes. Tomorrow we're going to get into the previews. I got a few previews. Like I said, I already blew one out of the water for Oregon, Ohio State. Everybody knows that's going to be a preview. Top 3 matchup, you got to preview it. If you don't, what planet are you living on, right? So, really excited. And with that, have a great rest of your guys' day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.